6. We were waiting for Amy Wall, who's the voting member of the study committee, to be here because she would have she would have been doing this presentation because it's in Dummerston, obviously. But I'm going to just launch into it, and Christina is here, who's the non-voting rep, and why don't we go ahead and introduce ourselves so you know who's going to be speaking.
The Dummerston meeting?
Well, only if your board is here. We're gonna.
They're not. We don't have a quorum, so.
Right.
It's an
So that-
information.
Yeah. So,
Alice Rivas, Guilford.
Lyle Holiday, Director of Curriculum, Central Office.
I'm Alice Laughlin. I'm the chair of the Putney Board and the chair of the study committee.
Ron Staley, Superintendent of Schools, Windham Southeast.
Mark Truhan, Brattleboro Town School Board,
Here's
voting
Alice.
member of the study
Me
committee.
not.
Christina Naylor, Dummerston Town School Board, alternate member of the Act 46 study committee.
Okay, and you can introduce yourself. Well, everyone knows you probably.
Amy Wall, Dummerston Board.
Okay, so before I throw it over to Amy, she's going to take a breath. This is our legally required information meeting. We need to have one in each town. And so this is it. We are officially sharing information about the December 13th vote with you guys. Okay, there will be many other opportunities for you to hear from this committee if a merger were to be put in front of you all in March, but that's still yet to be seen. Okay?
Housekeeping.
And this is a very short presentation, and then we'll take questions.
Okay, so as you know from the little flyer that you got in the mail, that there's a vote a week from today, actually, at the Congregational Church at the lower level, where we usually do polling for Dummerston voters. And the vote's on whether to release the town of Vernon from the Brattleboro Union High School District number 6.
Excuse me, can I just speak up? Yeah.
Can you move forward a little? And then I don't have to yell? There's plenty of seats up front. So the vote's on the 13th, a week from today, in the Dummerston Church. And who's voting? All the towns, members of BUHS district, except for Vernon. So it'll be the voters of Brattleboro, Dummerston, Guilford, and Putney. And we need to all vote on whether or not to release Vernon from the high school district. And why are we voting? We are voting for the main reason is that Vernon wants to maintain its 54-year history of grade 7 to 12 school choice. Vernon is unique in the state, and it's unique in our district. The rest of the towns, Brattleboro, Dummerston, Guilford, and Putney, do not have choice. And under Act 46, although we initially were advised that Vernon could retain school choice, a ruling from the AOE came through at the beginning of this year and reversed that decision. So it became necessary for Vernon voters or Vernon as a town to consider whether or not they wanted to continue on working towards a merger, given the fact that they wouldn't retain school choice if they were to join the rest of the members of WSESU in a merger. They decided fairly quickly that they did not want to continue on, and they officially, in early August, voted as a town to take the first step in the process of withdrawing from BUHS District 6. And that was with a vote in early August affirming their commitment to withdrawing. The second step in this process is our vote a week from today. So, yes, I did. I covered everything. Yep. So, I already covered this, so sorry.
That's okay.
The financial implications, Frank Rucker, our business manager, worked with Paul Giuliani, who is one of the district lawyers, and they determined that the net effect, financial effect to the rest of us, the remaining members of BUHS number 6 was essentially zero. Vernon owns a share of the BUHS buildings, and it also owns a share of the liabilities. So the assets and the liabilities that Vernon has even out. It doesn't really leave us in a weakened position. So
If I could just add, so with Paul Giuliani's help, he's a bonds person, there was an agreement written up that the Vernon School District Board, along with the BUHS District Board, signed that essentially what Amy was saying in terms of assets versus debts were kind of balanced each other out. And then all of the remaining boards signed off on that agreement.
So if Vernon is successful in leaving the district, the high school district, and this is for grades 7 to 12, then they would pay tuition to send students to BAMS, BUHS, then the Windham Regional Career Center. So, next slide.
This is,
Yeah. So traditionally about 75 to 80% of Vernon grade 7 to 12 students come to BAMS, BUHS, and Windham Regional Commission, or Windham Regional Career Center. And based on that history, we expect similar attendance in the future. And will Vernon have a vote in the BUHS District number 6 board? No, they will not. They will, they can share their thoughts and concerns with the BUHS board or a unified board, given, about programming and whatever else, but they don't have an official seat on a unified board. And the vote on December 13th works one of two ways. You vote yes to allow Vernon to withdraw from BUHS District 6. If you vote yes, then Vernon will exit the district and pursue their options to retain school choice. That's their main goal. They really want to preserve that history. If you vote no on releasing Vernon, then and any one town can vote no, and it will stop the whole thing. Vernon will not leave or be allowed to leave. If the vote is no in any given community, then Vernon will not be allowed to withdraw from the high school, and they will remain in the high school district. So we've got different polling locations for our various communities. Ours is the lower level of the church, like usual. I don't know the hours, it's probably
10 to 7.
10 to 7. 10 to 7, 10 in the morning to 7 p.m. And then we do have several more information meetings coming up. So if you know someone that isn't able to attend this one's, they can come to the one in Putney tomorrow at 6 at the Central School, or the one at Oak Grove on Thursday at 6 in Brattleboro. So, and I don't think I have anything else to add. We don't have a Vernon person here today?
We have two board members, Carrie
Okay.
and Sandy.
So I don't know if you guys want to speak to the withdrawal at all from Vernon's perspective, or?
Maybe I could just give a little prompt. Mike Hebert, the board chair of Vernon, was at Guilford last night, and Carrie, you were obviously there. And we talked about the withdrawal agreement, and we talked about Vernon's intent to maintain school choice. Early on in the process, we believed through the Agency of Education that they would be able to maintain school choice. And then abruptly, I think it was last February, we learned that that wasn't the case. And so that's what prompted Vernon to say, you know, they want to maintain that opportunity. But I know the board is very interested, if the merger goes through, that Vernon would contract services with the new district. So it's not like we'd be saying, you know, Vernon's gone. The State Board of Education, we've had some conversations with them about Vernon contracting with us. And quite frankly, I think Mike, as a legislator, was speaking last night that he would hope that as mergers occur, that in some cases, these school choice issues, they get to be exceptions, that a school like Vernon, who's had that opportunity, would be able to maintain that and join a merged district. And that would be a modification of Act 46, so we'll just have to wait and see about that. But I don't know if there's anything you'd like to say, either Sandy or Kerry, about the idea of school choice and maintaining that, or anything else.
Well, we certainly hope that you will support our desire. We were kind of forced into this. As Ron said, we thought this was going to be allowed in the new unified district, but that changed. So this is what we have to do to be able to maintain school choice, and that's very important to the people in our town. So we hope you'll support it.
Why would anybody vote against doing his own thing? What's the rationale?
I think because people may not know. I've had many people come to me and say, so how should I vote? Why would I vote yes? And it's complicated. It's like a two-step process that, you know, we want to give Vernon that, you know, opportunity to maintain what they have, and let the other districts move on with, you know, whatever they decide to do. But I think a lot of people are wondering, well, why would they want to leave UHS 6? And I think it's just a lack of information.
It just seems, if that town,
Right.
voted early
Right.
on and they were so clear, why should we?
Yeah, and that's what we hope.
Yeah, and this is required by statute, the two-step vote, you know, so. Yeah.
You said you hoped, Ron.
Well, speaking about supporting Vernon, I hope people would do that by voting yes. Yeah. Linda,
This is kind of answer to Linda's question, that it's why I'm here. I'm not sure how to vote on this. I can certainly see from a practical and expedient point of view that this is what Vernon wants. We should let them, you know, what difference does it make to us? And if I were, you know, if other towns were voting on something that I wanted for my town, I would be upset if they didn't go along with it. On the other hand, I have a real philosophical objection to sending public money to private schools. I think it's the absolute opposite of what Act 46 is trying to accomplish. And I really object to it, and that's where I'm stuck.
Well, Act 46 it's something that the State Board of Education is considering now in some legislation about using public funds for private schools. But Act 46 is not necessarily about that. It's about educational equity. And
Yeah, but how is that equity? You know,
well,
like
in this scenario, it's not going to happen because Vernon can't. So, you know, if Vernon were to be part of a potential merger, unified WSESU, you know, they would not retain school choice under this scenario.
Right.
So,
So that's where I'm stuck.
yeah. Can I just take the Vernon person? So,
I just would like to say that there are very few of the students that take part in school choice that go to private schools. They go to other public schools. So it's, if that makes you feel any.
20%.
Because they said 80% go to
Yeah,
UHS.
so those families are being, their child's private education is being subsidized by the taxpayers of your town.
Don't some of them go to?
Most of them go to Pioneer.
If they go to
Yeah, I'm not
Marlboro.
objecting to public school
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
I think historically, since 1956, where Vernon was such a close proximity to Pioneer Valley,
Yeah, I
that's where
understand that.
most of the students
Yeah,
go. I mean,
yeah,
a
if you
few
live
of them go
5
to
minutes
Mount
away,
Vernon.
why wouldn't you wanna go there? I get that.
yes.
Does this mean that Vernon has to pay tuition for every single student going on to high school?
Grades 7 through 12, yes.
Every single
Coming
one?
to BUHS.
Yes.
Every single, no, anywhere.
Anyway.
Yeah, right,
Yes.
right.
What is the difference between the tuition that they would pay to go to BUHS compared to what is paid now?
Yeah, it's not much of a difference. We've calculated that. UHS's tuition is $14,750. The state average is pretty close to that. So what they pay now to Pioneer or the other schools outside of BUHS would be the state average tuition. So it's pretty similar. And so we feel like, if 75 to 80% of the students continue as they have coming to BAMS and BUHS, there'll be no financial difference to them as a school district or to BUHS 6 as a receiving district.
So my question is on the financial implications. I understand that you say that there are assets that they own, and then that they obviously are to the bond debt for the high school and everything like that. What I can't figure out is, yes, we get their assets, but those assets are as illiquid as the assets can be. And so it would seem to me like, yes, in theory, we have more capital, but it's a building capital that we can't do anything with, and we have now more bond debt. So I don't see how that wouldn't affect us, and that Vernon's portion of the bond debt would get distributed to all of us. So am I wrong on that?
The attorney looked at that, and it's, as long as they continue to pay tuition, it just offsets that. If Vernon said, no, we're not coming to BUHS, that would be an issue.
Right. And Vernon not having a say in what happens at BUHS. Vernon's a town that has strong opinions, and if they didn't like what was happening, I could see a mass exodus easy.
Well, Mike Hebert addressed this last night and made the point that tuitioning towns like Dover and Marlboro, they don't have board seats, but they certainly, have conversations with principals, the administration, teachers, and, they have input as parents, just as Vernon would, and, that's not gonna go away. And the fact that I really believe that they will contract for services with the supervisory district for special ed, for, other financial operations. It wouldn't make any sense for them to be assigned to Windham Central or Windham Southwest.
And so in the future, like say we build a new gym, something like that, the idea would be that you'd sort of calculate into their tuition that bit of
The
whatever
capital
future
fee,
bond debt
right.
would be to any however many kids they bring.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the,
I just am confused about what this means for Vernon in terms of voting and being able to have a voice in determining future decisions. I'm just confused about if Vernon isn't in this union arrangement with Brattleboro, then Vernon would have to join with someone else that would have a similar
Yes.
choice arrangement. Would there be any place for Vernon to have a vote? Or are they basically getting rid of that option?
they are saying they want to get, that school choice is important enough to them and maintaining it, that they're willing to give up that option and be contract with Wyndham Southeast for those types of services.
Or anywhere else.
Or anywhere else, yeah.
If they voted no, they still wouldn't have a voting.
Well, down the road, I could see as an alternative that, what they call a side-by-side merger with a place like Dover or Marlborough. I don't think that will actually happen, but, you know, it's a possibility that a town like Vernon might want to pair up with Marlborough and Dover, because both of those have middle school and high school choice. So that could be a possibility.
I'm gonna get to you next.
Somebody had one job.
Yeah.
Oh, did-
Okay.
sorry.
Roger?
What would they be contracting services for? If their kids are coming, if their high school kids are coming to BUHS, and their elementary school kids are going to their own elementary school, who would they be, what kind of services would they have to contract for?
You know, so special ed right now is consolidated throughout the whole district. And so they would, in theory, have their own special educators as opposed to within our district.
For their elementary school?
For their elementary school, yeah. And there may be a way to maintain having them have district employees as opposed to just Vernon employees. That has proven to be more cost effective and also in terms of better services. Financial services for payroll and you know, accounting and you know, all of those services that are done by the supervisory union. Those are things that they can contract with.
Yes.
How are those expenses different than they are currently? So,
I'm sorry?
how are they different than they are currently? So if Vernon is separate from the district and they contract for those services, how are the expenses different than they are now?
So Frank Rucker had done a model,
Mhm.
and it was pretty comparable. It cost them a little bit more, but it wasn't like, it didn't have a huge tax impact. So that's, you know, early on, we were thinking, oh, this is gonna be bad for them. And it wasn't as bad as we thought. In fact, it was actually, it wasn't favorable, but it was pretty good considering. I'll tell you my personal opinion, down the road, 2 years, 3 years out, I think the tax impact will be much more substantial to a small district.
Substantial.
Higher.
Vernon?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
much higher.
Can you explain why you think that?
Well, right now, our small districts, Dummerston, Guilford, Vernon, Putney to an extent, yeah, Putney. It's hardest to create equity in terms of programming for some of the smaller schools that have smaller budgets. And when we try to increase things like foreign language, even something like universal meals, where we have a poverty rate that we have to go by, those smaller districts can't afford to do that. When they add the money to increase the programming, it just causes their tax rates to go off very high. And in fact, there's a ceiling that the state puts on in terms of how much you can increase your taxes by. And oftentimes where Guilford would try to talk about integrated technology, foreign language, some other opportunities.
Pre-K was a huge
Pre-K,
one.
pre-K classrooms, pre-kindergarten. They just can't do it financially. So that's what I'm saying, in smaller districts, it's much harder for them to make those programmatic changes. In a larger district like Brattleboro Town, where you can divide it up by 800 students, as opposed to a school of 100 students or 120, it has less of an impact on the tax rate. And in a unified district where we have 2,400 students, you can add 2 foreign language teachers to go to Dummerston and Putney, and 1 for Vernon and Guilford, at a very minimal rate increase to their budgets and tax rates. But right now, it's hard to do that. And that's why I say down the road, I think these individual districts, smaller districts, they're
So
gonna be.
if Act 54 is implemented, then when that might begin to occur.
Yes.
Benji?
So this is a complete and total divorce, right? They will no longer have the use of the office, the buying power,
Correct, yes.
everything.
Well, again.
So
we
business
call it
manager.
Divorce.
All that stuff.
Call it a temporary separation.
Right.
Because I think we're gonna be back together. That's my hope.
Isn't the thought that they make contracts
Yeah.
with the SU? Because
Yeah.
there's a difference.
Yeah, but are
between
they
tuition.
gonna now like buy paper, like,
Yeah.
we buy paper
Yes.
together?
Right.
They're still
Yeah.
gonna be doing that, buy
That's
oil,
what, by
that sort of
contracting
thing.
services, yes.
Are they gonna contract services with the business manager to make their budgets and things like that? And how are you gonna separate that? You're
The
just
board
gonna
would
hit
need to
the timer
determine what
and
to
like,
charge
I'm
for
working for
that.
Vernon now? Like when the business manager's working for Vernon?
There's a set contract fee. Right now, we have, every school district has a bookkeeper, has a treasurer. You know, there's a fee associated with those services. Guilford recently, they were doing it on their own, and they came into the SU for those bookkeeping and treasurer.
So our town clerk did it for a number of years.
So for them, it saved them $20,000 in their budget. It made sense to do it. And, you know, we know here are the services that we need to provide. It's not like our business manager or payroll people on the clock saying, oh, no, I'm looking for Guilford. I'm done with you.
Yeah, there's no animosity, we're not gonna put the blocks to them.
I'm
We're still saying
not
Christmas tree.
insinuating that at all, at all.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to grasp exactly what the relationship would be after this,
Mhm.
so that I know what I'm voting for, and that I'm not, I mean, listen, I wouldn't want another town telling Putney what to do, so I totally feel for you, but I also, you know, I am looking out for Putney. So I want to make sure that this vote doesn't, you know, make problems for our town as well. So this is why I'm here for this meeting, to try and figure out exactly what it's gonna look like when it's all said and done. And I just get nervous that no one really knows what it's gonna look like, and that's the part that I don't like.
So we have talked about being very, very aware during this process that the other towns, that there are not any financial consequences on the other towns.
Not any significant financial consequences.
Well, right, the other towns should not have to pay for Vernon's choice of leaving in any way.
So follow up on
Yeah.
that with talking about assets. So Vernon School will belong to the district, is that true? And will they be paying rent?
No, Vernon School will stay with them.
Oh, so what assets do they have then that the district would be getting?
They have their share of BAMS, BOHS, and the Windham Regional Career Center.
Well, those are also, okay, so you're calling those assets and
Yeah.
liabilities,
Yeah,
and
right.
that's a trade-off there.
Right.
Yes,
And they will retain the school ownership.
their own school.
Their
Their
own
own
school.
school.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is only about BAMS, the high school, and
Okay.
the Career Center. Yeah, so. Yes, in the back.
I agree with the gentleman from Putney. I think assets and liabilities are even where you're talking about that. But when you're talking about debt, and as I understand it, all of the towns in the district are jointly and severally liable for the total debt at the BOHS, which is like a little over $14 million. But if you divide that over 4 towns instead of 5 towns, it means that the remaining 4 towns are liable, jointly and severally liable for an additional $700,000 of debt. And so I'm concerned about the impact on that in terms of Dummerston's impact. And I totally understand Vernon's perspective, but I'm not sure I'm willing to let Dummerston be liable for an additional $700,000 of debt spread around the remaining 4 towns. And there's no guarantee that Vernon's student population will change, and there's no guarantee that this will continue, even though historically they have sent 70 to 80%. there's no guarantee that they will continue in the future. So those are my concerns.
Those are valid concerns, Paul. The only thing I would say is that the $700,000 that you reference is going to be offset by the additional share of the assets that our communities will retain, that will be transferred from Vernon to us. And
I don't know what an old high school building is worth on the liquidation market.
it's not that old.
Well,
you know?
what any high school building
Yes.
is worth on a liquidation market.
Yeah. So. Yes.
I don't know exactly what it's worth, but I know that Vernon was very instrumental when the Union District was formed and the junior high school was built. Vernon was the only town, outlying town, that supported Brattleboro in building that school and sending our 7th and 8th grades. So I have a feeling Vernon probably has invested a lot more into the assets than the other outlying towns have, Vernon and Brattleboro. But, you know, we are comfortable, I mean, we're not comfortable, this has all sort of been forced on us, and the whole thing is not ideal, it's not what we would have chosen, but, you know, Frank and others, Paul, have looked at the assets and liabilities, and rather than quibble over the fact that we have paid probably a lot more to build the junior high, they couldn't have done it without Vernon. If I remember correctly, back in the 50s, that it was a big deal that Vernon supported Brattleboro and built the school, helped them to build the junior high. And anyway, I know it's hard. This whole thing is hard. I think Act 46 has made it difficult for everybody in many ways, and hopefully on the other end it's going to be okay. But it's been a hard process, and there still are a lot of unknowns, certainly for Vernon. But this is one thing that we know we need to do, so.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of I know there's a lot of unknowns for all of us. You know, Vernon, Dummerston, Brattleboro, Putney, and Guilford. There's many unknowns, and we, as a group, and as a study committee, and then representing our communities, and then our respective communities are all working towards responding to Act 46. It is the law, and trying to make decisions while we can about our respective fate. And I think that's a much better position to be in than it is, you know, to have the state agency of education come in and dictate to us what we are going to do. So in reality, I mean, even though it's scary, the perspective change, I think we are in a position of strength, you know, because right now we are the masters of our own destiny. So, and the destiny that Vernon wants is to retain school choice. So, yes.
Will students have to apply to a high school, or do they simply say, I want to go to this one? And then
Yeah, they just identify that that's the school. Just as we do now with Dover and Marlboro, those students, families and students, they're just tuitioning to the school. And the fact that there's space, you know, it's not an issue. It's
I'm just curious, do you foresee cuts at the SU now that we're losing a certain percentage of our student body from WSESU?
What do you mean by that?
Well, now Vernon's not inside there, inside our umbrella. Would we have the same staffing?
Again, if we have 75 to 80% of the students, we wouldn't be reducing staff.
Right.
As a result of.
But we also work in the Vernon Elementary School as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's the question about whether, you know, they're gonna need the same.
Oh,
staff.
your point is like,
They're gonna
that
contract.
might
If
just
they-
be
if they're gonna
contracted, so
contract.
it's just all, you're no longer a member now, just everything's contracted
Yep.
services. So your thought is to try and keep the sort of day-to-day
Yeah.
as the same, basically. Okay.
Yep. while they pursue their other options to
Right.
see if they can retain their.
So
school choice.
they're classroom teachers that would maintain those, again, special ed, whether they would contract with our special educators to maintain those people, or they would just hire their own.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like, you know, curriculum coordinator, things like that, sort of.
That's where they would contract with
Right.
us or another district.
Okay. All right.
I wonder if it wouldn't be helpful for people to just, because we talk about it, and it's changed over the years, the tuition rate, and then for the high school is about 14,000, but if you remember, you're paying 17 something, right, for the UHS District 16, what are we paying now? For every student we send?
That seems to be, that seems
So then where's the money coming from that they would contract the services for?
additional from their district.
Yeah. So they would have their Vernon elementary budget, and then they would have a line item for tuitioning their
Right.
middle school and high school students.
I
And
thought the
then
special ed and
contracted
transportation
services.
came out of the tuition rate though, and then that's what they've
Those are separate.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
So the supervisory union has an assessment for transportation
Right.
and special ed, so that would be different for them.
Okay.
Yeah. But when Frank broke that out, it wasn't a substantial difference than the assessments that they get now.
I see.
Any other questions?
That's it.
Well, if you think of anything, you know, please contact the study committee. We have a lot of information on our website, at the WSESU website. It's the Act 46 page you can go to. We also have a new draft of the Articles of Agreement dated December 1st. There's been, in our minds, some exciting changes. If you're into that kind of thing, we are excited about it. Yeah. So, you know, in terms of board representation and that we think, you know, help strengthen the potential articles of agreement and report and help our communities achieve what we think we want to achieve for public education under Act 46. So go there, lots of information. BCTV has got all of the riveting footage, all several hundred hours of it, if you are so inclined or can't sleep at night. So.
And the vote is December 13th, which is a
Yes.
Tuesday.
Yes, a week
10 to
from today.
7.
So encourage your friends and neighbors to go out, get out and vote. And thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's 6:39.